Hope you're doing well today. It's Donna here, and I thought we would do some spooky Halloween type crafts. I'm not sure how many videos I'm going to be doing on this, but I do have one idea that I want to share with you today, so I'm going to get started. So to make today's project, there's just a few basic things that you need. You just need some scrap cardboard. So I've been using the back of a paper pad. You could use like cereal boxes, anything that you've got. I mean, you could just use some, some construction card if you want to use that. But to save money and to save supplies, I've just used some recycled card. You might want to use some dies. I've used these dies here from Waffle Flower. Although this project can be done without dies, you can just hand cut. That's not a problem. And we'll be using some texture paste. We'll be using some paint. You might want a sander or something similar to give some texture onto your project. And if you've got something like this, either like gilding wax or a gold pen, a gold Posca, a gold marker, anything like that, you might want that as well. You might also want some words or embellishments to embellish your project. And this is what we're making. So we're going to make some spooky frames. Now, these are great as decoration. They can go on the front of a journal. They can be displayed at Halloween and put around the house. Loads of different uses for them. They're just something a bit grungy, a little bit dark and mysterious. So this was the first one I did. And then I did this one. And then this was the last one. I love that little girl on there. Now, so all different styles is actually really good fun to start kind of putting it all together and designing what it is you want to do. So I will show you how to go about making one. They're really simple. This one is using texture paste. This one was, I embossed. So I cut the frame and then ran it through the embossing folder. I also stuck some silver flowers on there and I just painted them black and put some gold on. And this one is texture paste through a stencil. Today I'm going to be doing this method, but if you don't have texture paste, you can also use tissue paper scrunched up and stick it on. That will give texture. And you can also use a hot glue gun. So if you do a pattern with your hot glue gun, let it dry and then you can kind of paint over that. But enough of me talking, so let's get started on another frame. So I'm using this picture here. I actually think she's beautiful, although she does look quite sad or, I don't know, grumpy maybe. They're from my own set, my own pack. They are available on Ko-fi and Etsy. But any pictures that you've got, spooky pictures, magazine pictures, anything like that, you can use. And what you'll need to do is cut three frames, or 2 frames in a back. You'll need a cutting die, which is slightly smaller than the picture. So you've got a bit of an edge just to be able to stick the picture down. Then you'll need a bigger die to create the outside of the edge. I went up by 2 sizes. The one here, I think it was this one here. And then I went up 2 sizes. And then ran them through my die machine to make a frame. So I did 2 of those because our picture will be enclosed in the middle. And then I did 1 of the larger frame, but I didn't put the small die in the middle. So it just cut out the square. And that will be the back. So it's really easy to create this frame. You just need some paint, texture paste and some gilding wax, which I've already been through. I did paint this one first, but I don't think you particularly need to. So what I'm going to go in with first is my texture paste. And then I just got a spatula and all I did was get some of the texture paste, and it's a bit much, just kind of put it on like that. And that was it. This is it. This is all I did. So there's nothing technical or technical things to think about. And I just made some texture like that by moving this, what's this called? Whatever this is, moving this around. And you can just see it create some texture on there. Tiny bit messy, so if you don't want to be messy, that might be when using tissue paper or your glue gun. Might come in handy if you don't like all this mess and getting your fingers messy. Not everybody does. I like it. So you can see I'm just kind of doing that kind of stippling. I'm not worried about getting it perfect. I don't want it perfect. I want the texture on there because then the gilding wax will pick that up. And then I'm going to use a heat gun on mine. You could let it just dry naturally if you want to. I'm just going to speed things up a little bit. And if there's any areas that you think look a little bit flat like this, just go back in once it starts to dry off and just put a little bit more on. And just kind of work at it until you get it how you want it. And then where I've got any bumpy bits that I don't particularly want to paint, because although I want texture on the frame, I don't want texture around the inside or the outside, because I want that to, you know, look like a frame that's been cut. So I'm just going to use this to take that off. The next step is paint. Now, I found this in my stash. I've been clearing my cupboards out again. And I've had this for years and I forgot I had it. And it's the Tim Holtz Distress paint. But it's when it had like these foam pads on the end. These are so quick and easy to do. Your painting gets done in a flash. He doesn't do them anymore. He does these pour ones. With the actual pouring lid, but I think you can buy empty things like this, and I think I might invest in some because watch how quick this is. You literally just do this and it's done. Now, because it's texture paste, you might need a few coats. So what will happen is you'll see it will start to resist the texture paste a little bit. So you dry that off, and then on your second coat, because there's already paint on there, it will help to grip the next layer. So let's dry that off. So then once that first layer is dry, you can just go back in with a second coat. Make sure you get all of the sides. If you miss any, it's not a big deal. You can ink it up. But while you've got your paint out, it might just be worth doing now. And I'm going to pop that to one side to dry, and while that's drying I'm going to do the back of the frame. Okay, I'll leave that to dry, and I'm also going to do round the edges of the frame that I'm going to put behind the one we've just done, just so that they're covered in case I've been slightly off with my positioning of my dies. This will hide any white edges, particularly in like these corners. So then next I took this Gran Espresso Distress Paint. This is optional, it's not completely necessary. I'm still a little bit wet there, but it's definitely worth doing on the back, I would say, because I used a very dry brush and brushed it onto the back, and I'm hoping you can pick it up, but it gives it that kind of worn look on the back. It doesn't show up as much on the frame, which is why I was saying it's kind of optional. But just take a bit of paint, and you want it really, really dry. And just buff it in. I put too much on there. But you can always take a bit of the black as well. So the thing is with this project, it's just working at it until you've got it how you want it. I'm using a very old paintbrush. I'm going to put a tiny bit of black there to push that back a bit. Okay, so it's looking a little bit like that. You may not be able to see anything. It's subtle, but it's there. I'm going to do the same on the frame now. As I was saying, it doesn't show up an awful lot on the frame, but it's worth doing just to give it that bit of character and to push the shininess of the black back. But again, once you've put this on, you can go back in with your black. We can use Distress inks after this. And you'll see it kind of falls into the crevices. I like to then use just a little sponge, go around the sides just to make them nice and black. Again, all this is preference now. I would say from this point on, it's just kind of working at it to get an effect that you like. And then we go in with the secret ingredient, which is the gilding wax. This is one of my favourite things. I use it for so much, and there's a little bit goes a really, really long way. And all you want to do is take a bit on your finger and run it over your frame, and it will pick up all of that texture. So I went a little bit heavy there. So what I'm going to do in a second is come back with some paint, and I can go over that. It's because that's just where it was flatter, and I went in with a little bit more wax than I needed. It's like a magic ingredient. It's the amount of detail it picks up, and the amount of detail I didn't actually know was there. I'm also going to go around the edge of the frame a little bit. Not bothered about getting it all covered or all perfect. So if you want to knock any of the gold back, you can use a sander and go in like that. Sand some of it away. Don't worry if you get white, that's fine. I'll sort that in a minute. This will also obviously add a little bit of extra texture to it as well, so you could like sand some of your edges away. And then with a brush, I think this has got scorched timber on it, you can just go back over. It will cover the white and it will knock back the very shiny gold. So you can just go over it in the areas that you want. Maybe leave some areas a bit more shiny, so it looks aged. So it kind of looks like it's naturally aged. Okay. And then there are things that you can do. So those I stuck on at the end once I was finished. On this one, I used my rectangle dies to make some thin frames to put around the this frame here. This is a very wonky frame. I think I did this when it was getting dark. It was a bit wonky, but I do like it. So I just framed out the main frame with these smaller ones, sanded them down, and then just went over them with a brush. On this one, my photo was a bit shorter than the arch, so I cut out a flourish and then I just put some texture paste on, painted it and did the gold in exactly the same way. So you can add things on if you wish. I did forget to say at the beginning that you'll need some acetate or transparency. And you need to just measure yourself a bit that fits over your window. I'm going to use tape around my frame, with it being a bit warped from the paint. This will just help it to lie flat when it all gets stuck together. I've taken the backing off the tape and I'm going to use some wet glue as well. A little bit further away from where the space is, just to prevent anything smudging and smearing out onto the acetate. I'm going to let that sit, and then once the glue starts to dry a little bit, then I can press it down. That will just prevent it from smudging into the centre and just keeps everything a little bit neater. While that's drying, I'm going to get my photo and just, this is ground espresso oxide, and I'm just going to darken the edges up a little bit of this. You could distress this more if you wanted to. If you do have these or you're planning on purchasing these, they are already, I did already distress them before, you know, when I designed them. But you can always go more with that. So this is getting dry, so I'm just going to push down a little bit more, and I'm going to make sure I push away from the frame. The inside of the frame, I should say. So I'm pushing towards the outside, not too hard. Then once that goes even more tacky, then I'll do like another push down, and that'll be nice and secure. So all that's left to do then is to pop your picture in. Okay, and then we take this next bit and we glue it onto there. Now, you could have done 2 back pieces, but I just think it's better to do another frame, because then when you glue this down, you're not putting any glue onto here. So you don't have that chance of glue seeping through and spoiling the picture. Otherwise, if I'd just done another one of these, I suppose you could avoid glue on there, but I think a lot of the time you would just kind of just glue all of that and then press it down. It's just a preference. It's just something I thought would work well. And for this, I'm switching to Collall. You might want something heavy over the top just to help that connect. Make sure it's all really nicely stuck down. And then we're going to stick this back piece on. So again, I'm just putting glue on the frame. I've prepared this little word, boo, and it's from a sheet here. Now, I can't remember the name of the shop. It's from Etsy. I will link it in my description, if I'm allowed. I can't see why I wouldn't be allowed. If not, I will put the name of the shop and you can go and search, actually in the search engine in Etsy. So I'm going to put it on there, and I've cut the height, but I've left the width because I want to add some of these little Tim Holtz split pins. And these are tiny. They drove me to distraction the other day. I kept dropping them. Just going to get a couple out. Some have got lines on them, you might not be able to see, and some have got crosses. So I want to make sure I get the right colour and whether it's got a cross on it or not. Are they the right colour? Ever see? Yeah, they'll do. Right. Putting the lid back on to learn from my mistakes. I also just grabbed these out because I thought as well, if you've got anything like this, you could pop one of these onto the corner. And like that. Obviously it would have to be like a smaller one. Something that would fit. Okay, you could pop something like that on as well if you wanted something decorative. I'm going to pierce a hole either side with an awl. Try and get it lined up and straight, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And then to pop these through. These are for no reason other than a decoration. Just so it looks like it's been attached to the frame when the frame was made. So just an illusion. And I want to try and get them as flat as possible. So just gonna push down. And I want them flat so that it doesn't stick up too much from the page. From the frame, sorry. So it'll go on there like that. Just chop that off at the end. And chop. Then I got my sander and then I sanded it down, scuffed it up a little bit. And then just went back over with that ink to take the white away. On this one here, I did just put a tiny bit of gold on it as well. This is Unlock the Secrets. And to finish off, we'll stick that onto there. Again, I'm going to use Collal and I'm going to just do it like 2/3 of the way so that it's not actually sticking to the frame. I have another frame here all ready to go and all cut out. I'm going to do exactly the same steps as I did before. So I will speed this one up and I will let you have a look at what this one looks like when I'm finished. This one's all finished. It's drying, so I'll just be careful with it. So as you can see, this one just went completely off the charts. I decided to add lace on a circle, which wasn't my best idea ever. But I do like how it's turned out in the end. I've had to add some applique onto it because some of the lace was a little bit short here. So I needed to hide that. It's still probably a tiny bit short. I could probably add a little bit extra. And it's gone kind of grey. So I might add a little bit more brown over that once it's kind of all glued together. And possibly a little bit of gold. I'm not sure. But I mean like a tiny, tiny bit. So let's have a look at them all together. And I think they make a really nice group. I actually think this is nice for breaking it up a little bit. So if I was going to, say, get a big frame and display them in the frame as a holiday decoration, I actually think this would be like nice to, as just to break up all of the kind of more solid frames. So, you know, like a centerpiece. Let's move it down a little bit. You know, like a centerpiece, so it's in the middle, framing out those. It's just a little bit softer than the rest of them. Maybe a couple of smaller ones. You know, you could keep going with these forever. I'm just going to go over this with the Ground Espresso ink. I just want to dirty it up a bit. It's a bit too grey. It doesn't really sit with the rest of it. Need to be careful because it's not quite dry. There we go. Let me know what you think in the comments. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. See you soon. Bye.